You're doing it right now, calling your desperation drive. Every late night you stay up grinding, every relationship you sacrifice for success, every moment of rest you deny yourself. You tell yourself it's ambition, but Aurelius Maximus would look at you with those piercing steel blue eyes and see something else entirely, something you've been hiding from yourself. How long has this been true? By the end of this, you'll know exactly why what you call ambition is actually the most sophisticated addiction of our time, and why recognizing this might be the most liberating moment of your life. Here's what nobody wants to admit. We've created an entire identity around being ambitious because it sounds noble. It sounds virtuous. It gets us praise from society, admiration from peers, and most importantly, it gets us to avoid looking at what's really driving us. But strip away the beautiful language and look at the behavior patterns. The compulsive checking of metrics, the inability to be present without thinking about the next goal, the way your mood crashes when progress stalls, the constant need for more. Always more. Sound familiar? You're not ambitious. You're running from something so fundamental that you've built your entire identity around the running itself, and you've convinced yourself that the running is actually the destination. Aurelius Maximus once told me something that shattered my comfortable self-image. He said, "The man who needs to prove his worth has already decided he has none." Those words hit like a cold wind because they expose the truth beneath all the productivity porn and hustle culture mantras. Real ambition, true ambition, doesn't feel like desperation dressed up in motivational S. It doesn't require you to sacrifice your peace, your relationships, your basic humanity on the altar of achievement. What you're experiencing is something else entirely. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." He wasn't talking about ignoring others. He was pointing to the exhausting addiction of external validation that masquerades as personal drive. Think about it. When was the last time you pursued something without immediately thinking about how others would perceive your success? When did you last feel genuinely satisfied with progress, instead of immediately needing the next hit of achievement? The addiction isn't to success itself. It's to the temporary relief success provides from the underlying belief that you're not enough as you are. Every goal becomes a drug. Every achievement becomes a dose that works less and less over time. Marcus Stone learned this the hard way. That angular jawline and intense focus made him look like the picture of controlled ambition. But beneath that disciplined exterior was a man running from the possibility that he might be ordinary. His ambition was actually terror. Terror of being seen as mediocre, of being forgotten, of not mattering. The breakthrough came when he stopped running long enough to ask a different question. Not, how can I achieve more? But what am I really running from? Because here's the thing about addiction. It always promises that the next hit will be the one that finally satisfies. The next promotion, the next income level, the next recognition. Just one more success and then you'll be able to rest. Then you'll finally be enough. But you already know how that story ends, don't you? The Stoics had a different approach entirely. They understood that true strength comes not from constantly proving your worth, but from knowing it doesn't need to be proven. Not because you're special, but because the entire game of proving worth is a trap. Seneca put it perfectly. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. He was talking about more than money. He meant the insatiable hunger for validation, for achievement, for anything external that promises to finally make you feel complete. So here's the shift. Instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? Start asking, what am I trying to escape? Instead of, how can I do more? Ask, what am I afraid will happen if I do less? The answers might surprise you. Real ambition, Stoic ambition, comes from a completely different place. It comes from alignment with your nature, not from running from your fears. It's driven by service, by contribution, by the desire to express your highest capabilities, not by the desperate need to prove you have them. This kind of ambition feels different in your body. It's steady instead of frantic. It's sustainable instead of depleting. It creates more energy than it consumes, because it's aligned with who you actually are instead of who you think you need to become. And paradoxically, this is when you actually achieve things that matter. Not because you're chasing them, but because you're expressing something authentic. The man addicted to achievement burns out. The man aligned with his nature burns bright. Marcus Stone discovered this when he finally stopped running. His focus remained just as intense, but the desperate edge disappeared. That controlled exterior became genuine control. Control over his responses, his choices, his attention. Not control over outcomes. Because that's what the Stoics really understood. You cannot control results. You can only control your character, your effort, your attention. When you stop trying to control what you cannot control, you finally gain mastery over what you can. Your real work isn't achieving more. It's becoming someone who doesn't need to achieve anything to know his worth. That's not the end of ambition. That's the beginning of real power. When you know you don't need external validation, you're finally free to create something that actually matters. When you're not driven by desperation, you can be driven by purpose. The question isn't whether you're ambitious. The question is, what's your ambition really serving? You're not who you think you are. The next video proves it.